the Hong Kong Singapore price war.
Yeah.
And what's happening with the prices of a variety of things, but not the least of which is real estate. Where are we at on the price war between the two now that Hong Kong is reopening? And some people are actually going back to Hong Kong and because it's finally coming out of their COVID, but there's still a lot of other issues.
Look, the headline of the FT this week was Singapore's soaring expat rents undermine the bid to oust Hong Kong as a finance hub. I think that is categorically incorrect. I don't think that the soaring expat rents have anything to do with financial services wanting to come to Singapore to set up their operations. What is driving the financial services to come here is what has happened in Hong Kong. It is that Hong Kong is now just another Chinese city. It's, as one of my friends says, it's now a suburb of Shenzhen, right? That is what Hong Kong is. So there are reasons to be in Hong Kong, but you are not going to be there for a lot of businesses because it is now a Chinese city. You have to worry about the national security law. You have to worry about sanctions that have gone on against the Hong Kong leaders because of what they have done in terms of the democracy activists and who they have thrown in jail and that they're not respecting human rights. That doesn't change because rents in Singapore are skyrocketing. So the Singapore versus Hong Kong to be a financial hub has nothing to do with the fact that rents are going up, because that doesn't change anything about what's happened in Hong Kong. It absolutely impacts a lot of people. We know people who have left or are leaving Singapore because they can't afford the rent anymore, and they're going to go be a virtual nomad in Bali and then fly in and out when they need to. They're going to move to Phuket because you have not only cheaper housing, but you have good international schools that aren't that expensive. So yes, people are leaving, but they're going to be replaced by the people who are coming in who can afford it. And it's going to change a lot of what the expat community here is. It's going to impact Singaporeans as well, because there's going to be a increase in rents, because as people leave the expat housing areas where they are now, they're going to move into HDBs. So then the rents of HDBs are going to go up, and that's going to impact Singaporeans. Huge impact. It's not changing the battle on where the financial hub is going to be.
Let's stay with that, because I read that piece and others. A tiny percentage of Chinese multimillionaires is more than enough to swamp Singapore. There's plenty willing to come in, pay all kinds of rent, international schools, car prices. They are almost immune to any kind of increase. What does that make Singapore look like? And I'm slightly surprised it's gaining traction in the media, yes. Hasn't been any kind of government cooling measures yet specifically. But what does this potentially look like, Steve? Does the rich-poor divide get wider? Are there socio-economic repercussions to this for Singapore?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it gets the rich-poor gets wider. It also means that the expats here and Singaporeans alike who are paying more of their disposable income towards rent, it means they're going to be spending less in other areas like restaurants or activities for their kids. Now, of course, no one's going to stop the tutoring here because everybody, it doesn't matter whether you're an expat or a Singaporean, right? I see Max putting his head down. I'm sure he gets tons of tuition. So everybody gets, that's not going to get hit, but it's going to be, do you play soccer? Do you take ballet lessons? Do you take taekwondo lessons? Those types of enrichment that's the disposable income that you could start spending less on. Do you take piano lessons or drum lessons or all of those things? So there's going to be that impact. And so it's going to be felt far and wide. I think what people are trying to look at now is there's been a construction delay because of COVID. So as more units come online, is that going to bring pricing down a little bit? Is Singapore going to allow as many expats and foreign workers in? Are they going to lower lower the demand there? Then that's going to lower the prices. So things are still playing out, but right now rents are skyrocketing and it's hitting everybody.
I just wanted to add to that, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
I'll give you a breather there.
Yep.
At what point does this greediness stop? Okay, I've read the stories anecdotally. They're getting tenants coming up to landlords and saying, you want $5,000? I'll give you 6. You want $6,000? I'll give you 7. So the superficial argument is, how can landlords possibly turn this kind of money down? But it's greedy, yes. But there has to be repercussions there, right? Because, I mean, unless the landlords are spending all that money back into the Singaporean community, it's going to trickle down and affect everybody, from the nurses to the manual laborers. Everybody rents something somewhere, right?
Right. No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is this a problem of greed of landlords? Why shouldn't the landlords be able to get the market price for their property? When prices are going down, do people say, oh, the landlord should, the landlord shouldn't, that impacts the landlords. They have to pay. Should the landlord say, no, you have to pay more because it's unfair to me. You're asking for too low. No, you say that's what the market is. I'm going to pay you that. And there was in this FT story, a woman named Emma, her rent in Sentosa went from 7,000 to 14,000. And she said when they tried to negotiate, the landlord said, well, just go look in other suburbs. So what is the landlord supposed to say? Oh, I feel really bad for you. I'm going to take less money myself because your business and your employer isn't making up the difference. I don't have sympathy for that argument.
But it's not like the cost of living has doubled, right? Usually you expect a decent increase, a 2-3% cost of living increase every year. And that's where I have trouble with the whole rent increase thing, because it's just a money grab. Market forces are what they are.
Yeah.
But it's not like landlords have to raise their rents that much. They don't
greed.
Have to.
Pure and simple.
They could raise it a couple grand or whatever. As I mentioned in previous shows, my landlord was amazingly reasonable. We had a good discussion. He decided it was better to keep me in the apartment for 2 more years than to have to go through all of the changes and all that. So,
well, hey, Neil, I'm sure you know where the phrase "greed is good" comes from.
Gordon Gekko.
Yeah, Wall Street.
But the business isn't supposed to make as much money, and the landlord's a business. I mean, that's their investment property. They're not supposed to make as much. Look, the government needs to decide, should it step in? New York City has said, we aren't going to allow greed. We aren't going to see people get kicked out. We want to see neighborhoods that are mixed, so we're going to have rent control. There are ways that government can step in when market forces get out of control. And one of the quotes in that FT article was, this is from a realtor, who said, look, Singapore's small size means when you apply temperature, things boil fast. And that's what's happening here. You get a little bit of an increase in the number of expats coming on employment passes. You get a large increase in the amount of wealth that they're bringing with them, especially from a little bit north of here. And then prices go way up because things boil fast here.
All right. We got to leave it there. Steve, thanks so much. We will see you next weekend.
And I will be on with Elliot on Monday. So if you haven't had enough of me in this scintillating conversation, Monday at 4:15 for the Washington Report, my 3rd week in a row.
There you go. All right. Thanks, Steve.